Hey, good morning. Just wanted to post a quick video about routing slots for T-molding. So what I have done is I have made a small router base out of some plywood, countersunk some holes that fit into my router base with the attachment, in this case 3 attachment screws, and I guide that by hand around the perimeter of my cabinet. In this case I'm still working on the Robotron stand-up cabinet. I bought a set of router bits with exchangeable blades. So these blades come in different thicknesses. Different T-molding has different rib thicknesses. In this case, it's the second to smallest. I'm not even sure what that dimension is. But I'm using this red T-molding. It has a slightly smaller tang than some other ones that I've used. I prefer the ones with a thicker tang. I think they are easier to install than this thinner stuff. With this thinner stuff, you have to be a little more careful when you're hammering it into the slot to make sure that this tang doesn't crimp on you to like fold over as you're doing it. The thicker stuff, the tang is a lot shorter but wider, so it's a lot more beefy and will not bend over like that as you're hammering it in. So I think it's just a lot easier to install, but this red T-molding only came with the thinner tang on it. So anyhow, so what I will do, so I install that router bit. In this case, I'm using a 3/4 horsepower Hitachi router. I really like this router. So I will take this and I will put it as such. I will put my hand right here on it and guide it around the outside of the cabinet. Going fairly slow. I want to let the router bit do its work and remove the chips as you go. But I find using the smaller base is a lot easier than I've got an attachment on my router table over here. But guiding this giant piece around is fairly difficult given my tight workshop space. Also, I find that I get more consistency in the height of the dado, the edge of the plywood, using this handheld. My table does have a small amount of bow in it, this way and this way. And when I do a large piece like this, it bridges that bow and it creates a little offset. So as I get towards the corners, it'll be perfect. But as I get towards the middle and it starts to bridge that bow, the T-molding I'll find is just a tad bit offset, and I don't like the look of it. So I find doing it by hand, as long as I'm careful to keep this base nice and flat on the plywood as I go, makes a virtually perfect centering of the dado in the thickness of the plywood. So I'll run that around. In this case, I actually ran that dado all the way around and all the way down the back. I don't always do that. It all depends on the application. In this case, I'm putting a vinyl side art on it, and I want the T-molding to completely encapsulate that so there's no risk of peeling up the edges of the art. As an added bonus, if you bump it against the wall, the T-molding protects your wall from that hard edge of the plywood. But I don't always do it. If I have a cabinet that I'm going to keep in place, doesn't have side art, and doesn't have risk of damaging the wall, I won't necessarily route the channel in the back. Obviously, that's another 6 feet of T-molding times 2 that I need to order to do the back. But anyhow, so just a quick video on how to route that T-molding edge when I get around to actually installing it. I'll do a separate video on that. But if you have any questions or comments on that process, just let me know. Thanks.